Hey there, welcome back to Move with Joe. Today we're going to be talking about those nagging pains that we get in our neck, back, shoulders, low back from standing. In this video, we are going to explore the common pitfalls of standing posture, why humans are an upside down pendulum, how to find clear skeletal support, and the ideal position of the feet, legs, and torso in order to reduce muscular tone. So let's dive in. All right, so I get my buddy Stan here, and Stan's going to show us a little bit in terms of skeletal support. So ideally, anytime we're standing, sitting, we want to find the ideal skeletal support in gravity, because otherwise our musculature has to work harder. In general, a lot of people tend to be tipped forward or back when they're standing up. And so ideally, what we want is for our pelvis to be organized directly over top of our hips, knees, and ankles. They should all be stacked vertically. There's all sorts of different compensations that people do in standing. Some people tend to anteriorly tilt their pelvis because they have really tight hip flexors. They might arc their low back significantly in a lordosis, hyperlordosis. There's people that tend to sit down on their sit bones and kind of sit back, hunker back. There are people that tend to just be really far forward. Some people have their head protracted forward. There's all sorts of different compensations. Go ahead and stand up with me. And from here, I'm going to have you try and keep everything relatively stacked except for from your ankle joint. So your ankle joint, from your ankle joints, you're going to begin to tilt forward. And begin to notice as you tilt forward, when you start to feel some tension occurring, what muscles you begin to start to engage to hold you upright. So there has to be something at some point. If you start tipping too far forward, most likely something in your posterior chain, your glutes, your back muscles, the back of the neck, hamstrings, calves, or the toe flexors, you can feel your toes starting to grip the floor. Something in that line begins to engage to hold you up. If we tip back the other direction, so we fall back into our heels, you will notice that either your abdomen or your quads or the toes will start to lift up into the air. And so you can see that as soon as if we take it to extremes, it becomes easy to identify that, oh yeah, my back is engaging or my butt's engaging to hold me up. This diagram shows that the human body is actually an upside down pendulum, meaning that most of our mass is up high and our base of support is very small. Having this upright organization allows certain biological advantages. Take, for example, a matador and a bull. Now, a bull has a relatively low center of mass and has incredible power, and it can move very quickly in one direction. However, it lacks really the ability to be able to turn. Whereas the matador has a high center of mass and a small base of support, which gives him this incredible ability to turn and shift. So we're never perfectly still. There's always this little pendulum of movement, and we're always constantly having to navigate gravity. However, if we tend to fall forward, let's say we're standing texting, and I'm rounded forward like this, and I'm just reading, scrolling through in my Instagram feeds, whatever, and I'm here for a while, these muscles are now locked, engaged. And so over time, that's going to start creating discomfort because they're not meant as postural muscles. These muscles are meant for big, powerful movements of extension, lifting stuff up. They're not meant to just stay stationary like this all day long. One of the easiest things that you can do to find that skeletal support is to begin to tip back and forth through your ankle joints. And you can start off a little bigger, but each time try and get a little smaller and a little smaller until you feel the majority of your weight is going straight down through your ankle joint. You still have a little bit of weight in the balls of your feet, you'll still have a little weight back in the back of the heels, but the majority of the weight is going to be stacked straight over top of the ankle joint. And I will show you why that is the case. In order to get a visualization of this, here's the bottom of the foot, here's your heel bone. We don't want to be in the very back of the heel. We don't want to be in the ball of the foot. We want the majority of the weight coming straight through the ankle joint. So the ankle joint lines up exactly with your tibia and fibula. It lines up with the femur and then eventually goes into the hip. So that's where we will find that maximum skeletal support. Just take a moment to come back into yourself, tip yourself a little forward, a little back, and get a sense of where your weight is centered so that the majority of the weight is coming straight down through your ankle joints. You can do the same thing side to side. Oftentimes people might have a tendency of shearing into one hip. So just finding that balance through both feet. And ideally, you want your feet relatively underneath your hips, right? So if you have too narrow of a stance, now I have to stabilize because I'm not in great balance. And I don't want my legs too wide either, because here I have a lot of stability at this point, but again, my muscles are starting to engage because I'm abducted, I'm too far out. So where's the maximum point of support from the skeleton, from the ground up through your skeleton to counteract the forces of gravity? So that's what we're after, is counteracting the forces of gravity, using our skeletal support so that we can minimize the amount of muscular tone so that we don't have to end up in pain at the end of the day. So I hope that was useful. Please ask any questions, suggestions in the next video, and I'll be sending out more shortly.